morning to everybody. My name's Amy and I'm with City's Edge Quilt Shop and Sewing Center in Warsaw, Missouri. And today we're going to talk about the Creative Grids Log Cabin Trim Tool. And I just want to point out a couple quilts that I have hanging back here. One is this quilt we did in a class a couple years ago, and this entire quilt pattern was done on trim tools. So introducing different trim tools each month. It was a monthly program. And there was a different trim tool for each block that's on here. But one of them was the log cabin that we put in here. And the log cabin block has been around since the 1800s. It's a great block. The center of the block, which is usually a different color, will represent like the hearth of the home, I guess. Some people will put yellows in here to identify as a light in the window, or a red one in there, the hearth of the fireplace. So there's all different kinds of ways to do it. And then your logs are usually light and dark, but there's a couple other patterns that use the log cabin trim tool also, and we'll talk about those briefly. But you can see how we place the black on the outside, and then we was able to place them to make this little design and frame around the center star. So that is one thing that you can do with that. Another is like this is a little bit more organized scrap. It has blues and then your light side. And if you're in the Blue Box Club, you got a 3 yards of a color palette, 3 separate yards of fabric within a color frame. And your challenge this month is to go through your stash and coordinate with those 3 1-yard pieces, and you will have something like this when you're done. Okay, and then we'll talk next week about different layouts that we might do with our log cabins. So I wanted to show you what my process was and look at my organized mess, which I have on the table. And then I will show you the ruler and we'll cover the particulars on that. So let's go down here. Okay, so I started with all of my scraps. Here's a big bag of them. I have a big tote of scraps that were just left over from different projects, and all of these are batiks. But I find that generally people have a color palette that they usually, their comfort zone, right? And sometimes we need to press that comfort zone. And you either love batiks or you don't, or maybe you're traditional or 30s or just brights or more home colors, earth tones. But you have a color palette and you might have a scrap bin where you just have a bunch of leftover pieces like this, right? So this is where I started with my process. So I want to let you know that the log cabin trim tool has 3 rows around the center. So I needed to come up with 3 lights and 3 darks, and this is what I started with. So going through process of elimination, I thought maybe this one was too bright for the subdued blues that I had in here. I was really, really drawn initially to this pink. It's just a muted light pink. And I originally started with this thinking, oh man, I could really pull in some of these pinks that I have here. But then I started looking at some other colors and prints. I wanted a little bit of print, but not too much print. So unfortunately, that one got eliminated. And then this one got eliminated, and I separated them from lights to darks. So I would have my dark side and my light side. And then I kind of played with, okay, so what do I want in my center? And this guy right here, if it's paired with that, if you look at the values, this one could be a dark if I put them next to something like this. And I loved this piece too. It has just a little bit of pink in it. Um, so with this, I thought, oh, that's going to be great, but I really didn't have the other colors to go with it. So if you pair it with this, it becomes a dark. But if I pair it with this, it could become a light. So you've got to look at your values and kind of move them around where you think you're going to eventually land. So I separated them all from light to dark. And then I started playing with what I might want my center to be. So like this could be a dark or it could be a light. So let's see what I kind of played with. I eliminated this because I thought it was going to give me a good pattern overall on a smaller log. I really wanted to go with the blue palette, and I was debating on this one. I started getting drawn to these two palettes. So I started bringing these reds in to my darks. And then I was debating on the green. And I thought this green was just too bright. So then I got away from this guy. I thought this guy was just too much pattern, too much blue if I was going to bring this in. So I got rid of that. Then I just started my process of elimination to bring in my colors. This one is really pretty, and I really wanted to bring this in because it has just a little bit of pinks and it has just a little bit of blue. So I really was drawn to that one. So I left that in. I then decided maybe green was really not my palette. So I got rid of the greens. Um, I needed to narrow. I got pretty good with my darks here, but I didn't think this had enough pattern. I'm sorry, my lights here, but I didn't think that had enough pattern, so I brought this guy in. And if you see this, see how they're scraps? They're just scraps. So it had the red and the blue that I liked. So I ended up with these three as my palette for my lights. And then I had to play with, I had way too many darks here. So I really just love this piece. And I decided that this would be my center block. So since I wanted my center block to stand out, I got rid of all the other reddish pink, purple. Look, see, more scraps, and more scraps. So I decided this would be my color palette. How pretty is that? So nice dark center. So now I need some blues to go with it. I really wanted to use this piece because, again, it brought some pattern in there and brought in all the colors that I needed. And I thought this one just looked too muddy, too muted for it. So I got rid of that one. This one was a little more calming amongst the pattern that I wanted. So I ended up with this as my color palette. So I have my center square, my three darks, and my three lights to play with. So let me get rid of all of this and bring in our tool. Oh, I really love this piece, but it was just too saturated. Isn't that a pretty piece? Batiks are so fun because they have so many colors on them. Another thing you could do is if you have, jelly roll or something like that, this could be a good thing to use for your log cabin also. And they now have the honey buns, which are 1.5 inches, which is too big for the 8.5-inch ruler, but that I'm going to talk to you about, but would still work for some of the smaller rulers. Okay, so let's look at this. Here's my color palette. And I'm just going to have it on the side there. but I want to talk to you about the trim tools. So Creative Grids rulers have this really nice textured dots, and it's got a 1/4 inch all around the ruler, and it helps you lock into your fabric. The Creative Grids mats also have that little bit of grid, so when you push down, it really does help to hold everything in place. Now, this is a trim tool, which means you're going to oversize your blocks and you're going to trim them down. And when you get done, you have the perfect size block. And the trim tool comes in a 4-inch, a 6-inch, a 8-inch, a 10-inch, and a 12-inch. And the 12-inch one is a dual ruler where you can do a 6-inch and a 12-inch, but the center square is larger in that one. So it's a little bit different than this one. But all of them have the same features, which I'm about to show you here. So here is a 6-inch and an 8-inch ruler. Okay. So let's cover what the ruler does for us. One, it has a QR code. And the QR code, if you just take your camera on your iPhone and you hover over that, it will pull up Checkers Distributors, which is where Creative Grid sells their rulers. And they will have a video on how to use this ruler. Along with the instructions. So when you get this ruler, you have this really nice step-by-step instruction package that covers everything. But if you lose this, you can go there and download that and print it off, so you always have the instructions available. And the QR code's on the back of this also. So what this is telling us is that there's 3 different types of blocks that you can do with this. So here is the ruler. It gives you everything that you need except for the instructions of where you start. It tells me that I need to cut my strips at least 1 3/4, okay, and a center square of 2.5. I will tell you the important piece on this is the center square at 2.5. Now on the 6-inch square, it's 1.5. And that's where I was saying a honey bun versus a jelly roll might work nice, because a honey bun is 1.5. So it could be nice to use with this. But I'm sorry, the center square is 2.5, but the rest of them need to be at least 1.5. So you could use a honey bun as all your whites or all of your colors in your process here. So to use, I'm just going to put this one aside. We're going to do the 8-inch one today. So this tells me cut them at least 1 3/4. Now, if you have a strip that's not 1 3/4, okay, this is more like 2 1/4. Here's a 1 3/4. Okay. And if you don't have a lot, like you saw my scraps, some of them I didn't have a lot of. So I wanted to make sure that I had my minimum piece I needed. The rest of them, I had these already cut from another project. No sense in trimming them down, and I'll show you why there. So the other thing it tells me is that there's 3 blocks that I can do. There is a regular log cabin, there is a courthouse steps, and then there is a half log cabin. So let me show you what those look like. These are so cute. So this is the 4-inch block, just for our purpose here. This is the 4-inch log cabin. Okay, and it has my center and 2 outside layers. So here's 1, here's 2. This, I hope you notice, is very scrappy. Okay, so it's a different piece on every single log. So when you have a whole bunch of scraps, these are so great. This is a courthouse steps. The courthouse steps has the center square, and then it steps out from the center. And then this is your half log cabin where you just go outward. Okay, so this is the 4-inch one. Here is an 8-inch one. This is my half log cabin. Now this one is not as scrappy. You can see I coordinated them. This one is the courthouse steps. So you can see that it steps out. This one is not finished. It is an 8-inch one, but I'm missing one of my white logs. So I have 1, 2, 3, and only 1, 2 surrounds. But here's the log cabin, again, that's scrappy. So my lights and darks are all over the place. So again, a great scrappy one. You have round 1, round 2, and round 3. Hopefully you can see those dark squares. And that is what we're going to use to center and trim our log cabin. So these 3 rounds are for the log cabin and courthouse. And then you use this little square for your centering square when you do the half log cabin. So all your information is on here. So let's start our process. Let's make a block. So I start off with my perfect 2.5-inch square. Okay. And what's cool about this is when I cut my strip, right? I have my strip. I can place my 2.5-inch squares on here, start sewing, and do my sew right there, and just keep going. And that way I can chain piece like this, okay? And I can just cut these apart. I don't have to be exact because remember, I'm using a trim tool. So having that little extra piece on the sides is okay. I'm going to press towards the logs. So when I open this up, this is what I have. Okay. See, I'm not exact there, and that's okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to, I'm not worried about the square right now. I mean, the square is right there. But what I want to do is just do this one side. So I'm going to use the markings. You can see there's markings on this ruler that not only tell you where the squares are, but there's these dotted lines. And these dotted lines are each of the logs that you are creating. So I am going to put it on here. And I'm going to just do, I'm putting my diagonal line there. And I've got it on the edge, and all I'm going to do is straighten this piece up. Okay? You only have to do one side. So what's going to happen from there is I'm going to pin this. Let me turn it around. You're going to press towards the log, and when you do that, so it looks like you're going through the sewing machine, the seam will be facing you. Okay, so if I were sewing it, my foot would be here and my seam is facing me. And I would just take these, let's press that open. And again, I would chain piece these. I would have trimmed this off and I would chain piece these on down my line. Okay. What I'm going to end up with is this little guy right here. And then I'm going to trim that up and do the same thing. So I've attached them. I now have this guy. And every time I do this for the first round, the seam is facing me. And I'm always adding a piece so you don't get confused to the last log that you put on. So I have my center square. I first added this piece. I then added this piece. And then I added this piece. So this was the last one. I put it on here. That seam is facing me. And I end up sewing these guys down, and I end up with this guy. So I wanted to show you two things with this. So this one, I kind of trimmed up as you went. This one still needs to be trimmed down. So you take your round one, okay? And this is where you know if you got a good 1/4 inch or not, because your center square is going to be right in there and your dotted lines are going to be on your logs. And this is where, when you use trim tools, a rotating mat is awesome, because I can cut this down. I can just turn it. I'm going to turn my ruler. I've got my lines on my logs. Log in the center, and I'm going to trim it down. I now have row 1 to my block. So here's what it might look like if you didn't do the 1 3/4. Now these were cut to exactly 1 3/4, but I wanted to show you that that's not necessary because you're going to trim it down. So I'm going to center my row 1, round 1, and it says it right there. So you know, round 1, I'm lining up my dotted lines, and I'm just going to trim it up. Oops. Take him on the merry-go-round. And what happens is I have a perfect finished block. These will marry up so nice because you use the trim tool. So it's going to be one of the most perfectly blocks you've ever had. They will go together so well. All right, so once we have our blocks, we start with our next strip. Now, these were scraps. I didn't have a lot of it. So, and some of them were pre-cut from another project. So this is not a long strip, but you do it the same way. Okay, when you get to round 2, however, you are adding the piece everywhere you have 2 seams. So it's easy. It's not this, right? It's a light and a light, but it's not this one because there's only 1 seam and it's facing away from me. So I know that this is the wrong way. When I put it here, I have 2 seams and this is facing towards me. If you do not have a seam facing towards you, then you have it positioned wrong. Okay, so I put it on here. I sew it down my 1/2 inch. And then I continue that process all the way around. 2 seams, 2 seams, 2 seams. I now have 2 rows. 1, 2, 1, 2. I'm going to go to round 2 and trim it up. So I'm taking my round 2, got my dotted lines on my logs, right here, right here, right here. And these were oversized pieces. Round 2. Line everything up. And I have my second round completed. You do the same thing. Okay, where am I doing it at? I have two seams, nothing's facing me, nothing's facing me, nothing's facing, oh, look, a seam is facing me. So this is where I'm adding my log. So when I get ready to put my next piece on, I put it on like that. Okay, because this seam is facing me. And I do that all the way around for my third row, round 3. Now this is the last round. Do you see? I just leave it there. And I have my block. So this is the log cabin trim tool. Here is the courthouse steps where we do the same thing, round 1, round 2, round 3. And this one is the half square or half log, and we use this one, this corner, to add, we use this corner to add our logs. Okay, and always use this one to trim it up. So we will talk more next week regarding the log cabin trim tool. And we're going to talk about different ways to use this, layouts of the log cabin, and we'll just play with some blocks. So hopefully you will be making some blocks with your log cabin trim tool. If you don't have one of these tools, go ahead and check it out at our website at citiesedgestudio.com. Please like and follow our page, both here on Facebook and our YouTube page, where we will be logging this. This video is only on Facebook for 30 days. Otherwise, it will be on our YouTube video if you ever want to refer to it in the future. But we will put the links down below, and you will have all of that. Oh, the easiest to start with, the log cabin. The log cabin is the easiest. They all work exactly the same, regardless of which template you use, the log cabin template. They all, and it depends on your project. The one that I showed you in the very beginning up here, this is a 6-inch. So it just depends on how big you want to make your quilt. If you've been in the shop, we had a Christmas tree hanging in the classroom, and it uses the 8-inch log cabin and the 8-inch curvy log cabin to make that. But there's lots of patterns available for all of these projects. Lots of books with creative ways for layout, and we'll talk about some of those next week, but they all work the same. So it just depends on how big you want to make your quilt. If I was making a king size quilt, I would probably use at least the 8-inch. If you were making a tote and you were putting a decorative element on it, you might use the 4-inch one, or a pillow or something like that. So you can use either one of these. They will all work the same. All right. Well, great. Well, thank you again for joining me here for Coffee and a Demo with Amy. And I look forward to seeing you all Thursday for what's new in the studio, and next Monday where we will be playing with blocks. You all have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye now.